Write your title here. My mom doesn't want you there, my daughter-in-law said about the vacation I was excluded from. I was folding laundry when my phone buzzed, Tuesday morning, 10:17. The kind of time that means nothing until later when you realize exactly where you were standing when your life split into two. I had been awake since 6. That's the gift of being 72. You don't need an alarm clock. Your body just decides sleep is over, and now you get to lie there in the dark, remembering every mistake you ever made. But that morning I was fine. That morning I was just a grandmother folding towels in a house that used to be full of noise and now was full of quiet. The phone buzzed again. My daughter-in-law, Lauren. She never called before noon unless something was wrong or unless she needed something, usually both. I dried my hands on a dish towel and answered. Her voice had that tight sound, the sound people use when they've rehearsed what they're going to say, and they're trying to sound casual, but they're failing. She said, "Hey, Mom, how are you feeling?" That was her opener. How are you feeling? Not how are you? How are you feeling? Because I was 67 when she married my son Mark, and now I was 72, and somewhere in those 5 years I had become the old woman, the one people check on, the one they ask about her blood pressure and her knees and whether she's still driving at night. I told her I felt fine, same as yesterday.
Same as the day before. She said, "Good, that's good." And then there was a pause. I could hear someone in the background, her mother. I knew her mother's voice, the way you know a sound that has grated on you for years, a nasal, flat Chicago accent. She was saying something about packing the blue suitcase, not the black one, because the black one has that broken zipper. I said, "Lauren, what's going on?" She said, "We've been planning something for a while, a family trip, just something small, a long weekend. We didn't want to say anything until everything was confirmed." I waited. The towel was still in my hand, a white towel with a blue stripe. I had bought those towels when Mark was in high school. They were still good. They still held up. That's the kind of thing you notice when you get old, the things that last and the things that don't. She said, "We're going to the Outer Banks, rented a big house, 6 bedrooms, oceanfront. Mark's work has been so stressful, and the kids have been asking for a beach trip, and we thought, why not?" I said, "That sounds lovely." I meant it. The Outer Banks. We had gone there when Mark was 12, just me and him and his sister Jenny. Their father was working. He was always working. I remembered Mark building sandcastles for hours. He was so patient with them. He would dig moats and shape turrets, and when the tide came in, he would just start over. That was my boy. Steady, patient, kind. Lauren said, "The thing is, Mom."
The thing is, we've been talking about it, and we think it's better if you don't come. I didn't say anything. I looked at the towel. The blue stripe was fading. You wash a towel enough times and the color just leaves, like everything else. She said, "It's not that we don't want you there. It's just that my mom hasn't seen the kids in months, and she really wants this time to bond with them. And if you're there too, then she feels like she has to share, and she gets anxious about that. You know how she is." I knew how she was. She was a woman who had decided 7 years ago that I was competition. Not for a man, for her grandchildren, for my son, for every birthday and holiday and school play. There wasn't enough love to go around in her mind, so she had to hoard it, collect it, keep it away from me. I said, "Okay." Lauren said, "We're not trying to hurt your feelings." I said, "I understand." She said, "We can do something else with you later, just the 5 of us. Maybe a long weekend in the mountains, just you and Mark and the kids and me. That would be nice, right?" I said, "Sure, that would be nice." She said, "Great. Okay, I have to go. The kids are fighting over the iPad. Love you." She hung up. I stood in the laundry room. The dryer was still spinning. The towels were warm. I folded another one, then another one. Then I sat down on the floor because my knees were shaking, and I didn't know why. I wasn't sad. Not yet. I was something else. Something that hadn't found its name.
The thing about being a mother is that you spend your whole life making yourself smaller. You get good at it. You learn to step back. You learn to not take up space. You learn that your needs come last. And eventually you stop having needs at all. You just have other people's needs. You hold them. You carry them. You forget they were ever not yours. I had done that. I had done it for 50 years. I raised Mark and Jenny while my husband Tom worked 60-hour weeks. I packed lunches and sewed costumes and drove to soccer practice and stayed up late helping with science projects. I put money aside for college, even when we didn't have it.
I took care of Tom's mother when she got sick. I sat with her in the hospital even though she had never been kind to me. Because that's what you do. You show up. You keep showing up. And then one day you look around and everyone you showed up for is gone, and you're alone in a laundry room, sitting on a cold floor, holding a towel that doesn't belong to anyone anymore. I got up. I finished the laundry. I made a sandwich. I ate it standing at the kitchen counter. That was another thing I had gotten good at, eating alone. Not lonely exactly, just alone. There's a difference, but after a while the difference stops mattering. Tom had been gone 4 years, heart attack. He was 71. He died in the garage. He was looking for a wrench. That's what the paramedic said. He was found on the floor next to his tool chest.
His hand was still reaching for something. I thought about that a lot. The way he was reaching, the way he didn't get what he was reaching for. We had been married 43 years. I don't know if we were happy. I think we were tired. I think we loved each other the way old furniture loves a room. You don't notice it until it's gone, and the room feels wrong and you can't figure out why. I missed him. I missed having someone to say goodnight to. I missed the sound of his keys in the door. But I also remembered the silences, the dinners where we didn't talk, the years of sleeping on opposite sides of the bed, the way he looked at me sometimes like I was a stranger he had agreed to live with. After he died, Mark stepped up. He called every day. He came over every Sunday with the kids. He fixed the leaky faucet and mowed the lawn and took me grocery shopping. He was a good son, the best. I told myself that every night before I fell asleep. You raised a good son. You did something right. Jenny was different. Jenny lived in Portland. She called once a month. She sent nice gifts for Christmas. But she had pulled away after the divorce. Her husband left her when the twins were 3, and she had to start over. New city, new job, new life. I think she blamed me for staying with Tom. She never said it, but she looked at me sometimes like I had failed at something she was determined to succeed at. Independence, self-reliance, not needing anyone. I didn't push. I learned not to push.
You push your children and they leave faster. You let them go and sometimes they come back. Sometimes they don't. You live with the ones who stay and you miss the ones who leave. And you try not to let the math destroy you. The Outer Banks trip was in 2 weeks. I tried not to think about it. I failed. I thought about it constantly. I thought about the house with 6 bedrooms. I thought about my grandchildren building sandcastles without me. I thought about Lauren's mother sitting in a beach chair, watching the waves, while I sat in my living room watching the same 4 walls. I thought about how I had watched those kids every Tuesday for 3 years when Lauren went back to work. How I had potty trained the youngest, how I had taught the oldest to read, how I had held them when they were sick and fed them when they were hungry and loved them like they were mine, because in every way that mattered, they were. And now, I wasn't invited to the beach. I called Mark the next day. He didn't pick up. He never picked up anymore. He called back 3 hours later, said he was in a meeting, said sorry, said what's up. I asked him about the trip. He said, oh yeah, Lauren mentioned she talked to you. I said she did. He said, it's just a timing thing, Mom. It's not personal. I said, of course it's personal. He was quiet. I could hear him breathing. That heavy breathing people do when they're trying not to say something. He said, her mom has been struggling. Her depression, you know how she gets. The doctor changed her meds, and she's having a hard time, and Lauren thought a chip with the grandkids would help. And if you're there, then you and her mom have that thing, that tension. You know what I'm talking about. I did know. The tension. That polite, poisonous tension that comes from 2 women loving the same man and the same children, and not knowing how to share. But I had tried. I had always tried. I invited her to Thanksgiving. I bought her birthday presents. I bit my tongue when she criticized my cooking and my house and my son. I smiled and nodded and made myself small so she could feel big. And now I was being punished for the tension she created. I said, Mark, I'm your mother. He said, I know, Mom. I said, I raised you. He said, I know. I said, I would never have done this to my mother-in-law. Never. Your father's mother was difficult. She was cold. She didn't like me. But I still invited her to everything. I still made a place for her at every table. Because she was family. Because that's what family does. You make a place. He said things are different now. I said, no, they're not. People are the same. People have always been the same. They just have better excuses. He got quiet again. That quiet was worse than any words. It was the quiet of someone who had already made a decision and was just waiting for me to stop talking so he could go back to his life. I knew that quiet. I had heard it from Tom for 43 years. He said, Mom, I love you. You know I love you.
But I have to keep peace in my marriage. You understand that, right? I understood it. I understood that I had been replaced, that the woman I had raised had been given away to another woman, and now I was the other woman, the one who had to be managed, the one who had to be kept at a distance so the real wife didn't feel threatened. I was the mother, and I had become the mistress. I said, fine, go to the beach, have a wonderful time, send pictures. He said, don't be like that. I said, like what? He said, like you're punishing us. I'm not punishing anyone. I'm folding laundry. I'm eating alone. I'm doing what I've always done. I'm stepping back so other people can be happy. That's not punishment. That's just Tuesday. He said, I'll call you when we get back. He didn't call. He didn't call the whole time they were gone. I know because I checked my phone every hour. I told myself I wasn't checking, but I was. I was sitting in my recliner with the phone in my lap, watching the screen grow dark, and then lighting it up again just to see if there was a message. There was never a message. I saw the pictures on Facebook. Lauren posted them. 12 of them. All carefully curated to look like a perfect family vacation. The kids in the pool. The kids on the beach. Mark grilling burgers. Lauren's mother holding the baby. Lauren's mother building a sandcastle. Lauren's mother laughing with her head thrown back like she had won something.
And in every picture, the space where I should have been was just empty air. I scrolled through them twice. Then I closed the app. Then I opened it again. Then I closed it. Then I put the phone in the kitchen drawer so I wouldn't look at it anymore. Then I took it out 5 minutes later because not looking was worse than looking. The thing about betrayal is that it's not one moment. It's 1,000 small moments stacked on top of each other. You think it's about the beach, but it's not about the beach. It's about the Christmas they spent at her mother's house 3 years in a row. It's about the birthday party you weren't told about until after it happened. It's about the school play where you sat in the back row while her mother sat in the front row with your son and your grandchildren. It's about the way your son stopped calling you mom and started calling you by your first name when his wife was in the room. It's about the slow erasure, the way you become less real, the way you become a problem to be solved instead of a person to be loved. They came back from the beach on a Sunday. Mark called me on Monday. He sounded tired. He said the drive was long. The kids were cranky. Lauren's mom had a panic attack on the last night, and they had to sit with her until 3 a.m. I said, I'm sorry to hear that. He said, thanks, Mom. Then he asked me if I could watch the kids on Wednesday. Lauren had a doctor's appointment and the babysitter canceled. I said, of course.
Because what else was I going to say? No? Say no to my own grandchildren because I was still sore about a vacation I wasn't invited to? That would make me the villain. That would prove I was exactly what Lauren's mother said I was. Difficult, demanding, entitled. So I watched the kids. I made them lunch, I helped with homework, I let them stay up past their bedtime because they wanted to watch one more show, and I didn't have the heart to say no. I was the good grandmother, the patient one, the one who always says yes, the one who gets used and thanked and then put back on the shelf until the next time someone needs something. That was my life now, being needed but not wanted, being useful but not cherished, being the emergency contact and the backup plan and the last resort. I had raised children who loved me the way you love a safety net. You don't think about it until you fall, and then you're grateful. But you never look at a safety net and say, I want to spend the weekend with you. You look at it and say, I'm glad it's there in case I need it. The real betrayal didn't happen until 3 months later, October. The leaves were turning. I remember because I was raking the yard. Mark was supposed to come over and help, but he texted saying he had to work late. I said okay. I raked for 2 hours. My back hurt, my hands hurt, but I kept going because the yard looked terrible and I couldn't stand looking at it anymore. That's what you do when you live alone.
You fix things yourself. You don't wait for anyone. I went inside, I made tea, I sat down to check my email. And that's when I saw it. A message from my attorney, a woman named Carol who had helped me with Tom's will. The subject line said, urgent, please call. I called. Carol answered on the first ring. She said, are you sitting down? I said, I am. She said, I don't know how to tell you this gently, so I'm just going to say it. Your son Mark has been listed as the sole beneficiary on the life insurance policy Tom had through his work, the one you didn't know about, the one worth $400,000. I didn't understand. I said Tom didn't have a life insurance policy through work. He retired 15 years ago. Carol said it wasn't through his work at the time of his death. It was a private policy he took out 25 years ago. He never told you about it. He listed Mark as the beneficiary, not you. Mark. And Mark collected the money 3 months after Tom died. He didn't report it as income. He didn't share it with you. He just took it. I put the tea down. My hands were shaking. I said that can't be right. Tom would never do that. We had a joint account. We shared everything. Carol said, I have the documents. I have the policy. I have the signature. It's his signature. I had it analyzed. It's real. I asked her how much money. $400,000. She said it again. 400,000. The kind of money that buys a house, that pays for college.
That lets an old woman stop worrying about how she's going to afford her property taxes. The kind of money my son took and never mentioned. The kind of money he let me struggle for while he sat on a fortune he knew belonged to me. I hung up. I sat in the dark. I didn't turn on the lights. I just sat there watching the shadows move across the wall. And I thought about every conversation I had had with Mark about money over the past 4 years. The time I told him I was thinking about selling the house because the maintenance was too much. He said, don't do that, Mom. This is your home. We'll figure it out. He didn't offer money. He just offered words. The time I told him I was worried about my retirement fund, he said, you'll be fine. You've always been fine. He said it like I was being dramatic, like I was one of those old women who worries about everything. The time I asked him if Tom had any other accounts I didn't know about, he said, no, Mom. I helped Dad with his paperwork before he died. Everything is accounted for. Everything was accounted for. He had accounted for it. He had taken it. I called Jenny. It was late, past 10. She answered on the 4th ring. Her voice was groggy. She said, Mom, what's wrong? I told her. I told her everything. There was a long silence. Then she said, I knew. I said, what? She said, I knew. Mark told me 2 years ago. He said Dad had left him some money and he didn't want you to know because you would just waste it on the house. He said you didn't need it. He said you had enough. I told him he should tell you. He said I would never understand. He said I was too soft. I couldn't breathe. I said you knew for 2 years and you didn't tell me? She said I thought about it every day, every single day. But Mark is my brother, and I didn't want to be the one who destroyed the family. And I thought maybe he would come around. Maybe he would do the right thing. But I said, you let me sit in this house worrying about money while you knew your brother had $400,000 that should have been mine. She started crying. I could hear it, that wet, ragged sound of someone who has been carrying a secret, and the weight of it finally broke her. She said, I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. I didn't know what to do. I said, you could have told me. You could have picked up the phone and told me the truth. That's what you could have done. She said, I was scared. I was scared of what would happen. And I was scared of Mark. He's not the same person he used to be. He's different now, harder. Lauren changed him. I said, no, money changed him. Money always changes people. It shows you who they really are. I hung up. I didn't sleep that night.
I sat in the recliner and stared at the ceiling. I thought about the life insurance policy. I thought about Tom hiding it from me. 25 years of marriage after he took it out. 25 years of sleeping in the same bed, eating at the same table, raising the same children, and all of it built on a secret, a $400,000 secret. He had looked at me every day and decided I didn't deserve to know. He had looked at our son and decided he deserved it more. And Mark, my boy, my sweet, patient boy, who built sandcastles on the beach, he had looked at his mother, his aging widow mother, and he had taken the money. He had hidden it. He had lied about it. He had let me worry about property taxes and grocery bills, while he sat on a pile of cash large enough to change my life. I drove to Mark's house the next morning. I didn't call first. I just went. He lived 20 minutes away, in a subdivision called Oak Grove. Big houses, big yards, big fences. The kind of place where people wave at you but don't know your name. I parked in the driveway. I walked to the front door. I rang the bell. Lauren opened the door. She was wearing workout clothes. Her hair was in a ponytail. She looked surprised to see me. She said, "Mom, what are you doing here? Is everything okay?" I said, "Is Mark home?" She said, "He's at work. You know that. He's always at work on Tuesdays." I said, "I need to talk to him. It's urgent." She said, "You should have called. He's in meetings all morning." I said, "I'm not leaving until I talk to him." She stepped back. She had never seen me like this. I had never been like this. I had always been polite, accommodating, the path of least resistance. But not anymore. Something had broken.
Something that couldn't be put back together. She said, "Fine, come in. I'll text him." I waited in the living room. The same living room where I had watched my grandchildren open Christmas presents. The same living room where I had sat on the floor playing board games. The same living room where I had been a welcome guest. Until I wasn't. I looked at the furniture, the new couch, the new coffee table, the new television. All of it paid for with money that should have been mine. I was sure of it. Mark came home 45 minutes later. He walked in the door and looked at me, and I saw it. The fear, the guilt, the knowledge that his time was up. He said, "Mom, what's going on? Lauren said you're upset." I said, "I know about the life insurance policy." His face didn't change. That was the thing. He didn't look shocked. He didn't look confused. He looked like someone who had been waiting for this moment and had rehearsed what he was going to say. He said, "Mom, let me explain." I said, "There's nothing to explain. Your father hid money from me. You took it. You lied about it. For 4 years, you watched me struggle, and you didn't say a word. You are my son, my only son, and you stole from me." He said it wasn't stealing. Dad left it to me. It was his choice. He had his reasons. I said, "What reasons? What possible reasons could he have for cutting me out of his life insurance?" Mark looked at Lauren. She nodded, like she was giving him permission.
He looked back at me and said, "Dad didn't trust you with money. He said you were bad with it. He said you would have spent it on stupid things. He wanted me to have it, to take care of the family, to make sure the kids had what they needed." I said, "I am the family. I am his wife. I am your mother. I carried you. I fed you. I stayed up all night when you had fevers. I drove you to school every morning for 12 years. I made your Halloween costumes and your birthday cakes and your favorite meals. And this is how you repay me? By stealing my husband's death and calling it a gift?" Lauren said, "You need to calm down." I looked at her, this woman who had never liked me, who had spent years pushing me to the margins of my own family, who had excluded me from a vacation and called it bonding. I said, "Don't tell me to calm down. You are not my daughter. You are the woman who took my son from me, and now you're standing in your expensive house, on your expensive couch, bought with my money, telling me to calm down." Mark said, "Mom, that's enough. You need to leave." I said, "I'm not leaving. Not until you tell me where the money is." He said, "It's gone." I said, "What?" He said, "It's gone. We used it to pay off debt, to put a down payment on this house, to invest in Lauren's business. It's not sitting in an account somewhere. It's gone. $400,000. Gone. Spent on a house I would never be welcome in, on a business I would never see a return from,
On a life that had been built on my ruins, I looked at my son. Really looked at him. He was 42 years old. He had his father's jaw, his father's eyes, his father's ability to look at me like I was an inconvenience he had to manage. I said, I'm going to see a lawyer. He said, you can try, but Dad left that money to me. It was his to leave. You don't have a claim. I said, watch me. I left. I drove home. I called Carol. She said the legal situation was complicated. Life insurance policies don't work like wills. If Tom named Mark as the beneficiary, then the money was Mark's, legally, even if it was morally wrong, even if it was a betrayal, even if it destroyed a family. The law didn't care about any of that. The law cared about the signature on the paper. I asked her if there was anything I could do. She said maybe, if I could prove Tom was incompetent when he signed the policy, or if I could prove Mark had unduly influenced him. But that would require evidence, and it would require money, and it would require me to sue my own son in a court of law. I said, do it. She said, are you sure? I said, I have never been more sure of anything in my life. The lawsuit took 8 months. 8 months of depositions and documents and phone calls and sleepless nights. 8 months of watching my family split open like a rotten fruit. Jenny testified on my behalf. She told the court that Mark had admitted to her that he knew the money should have been mine.
Mark testified that he had no such conversation, that Jenny was confused, that she had always been jealous of him, that she was trying to get attention. Lauren's mother testified too. She said I was bitter and vindictive. She said I had always resented Mark for not being closer to me. She said I was using the lawsuit to punish him for choosing his wife over his mother. She said it with such certainty, such conviction, like she had been waiting her whole life to say those words in front of a room full of people. I lost. The judge ruled in Mark's favor. The policy was valid. The signature was real. Mark had done nothing illegal. Immoral, maybe, but not illegal. And the law doesn't care about immoral. The law cares about what you can prove, and I couldn't prove anything, except that my husband had lied to me, and my son had taken advantage of that lie. After the ruling, Mark sent me a text. It said, I'm sorry it came to this. I hope one day you can forgive me. I didn't respond. I deleted the text. I deleted his number. I deleted all the pictures of him from my phone, every single one. The baby pictures, the first day of school, the graduation, the wedding. I wiped him out of my digital life the way he had wiped me out of his. But you can't delete a person from your heart. I tried. God knows I tried. I went to therapy. I went to church. I went to a support group for estranged parents. I sat in a circle of old women just like me and listened to their stories.
Daughters who never called, sons who married terrible women, grandchildren who grew up not knowing their names. We held hands. We cried. We said it wasn't our fault, but we all knew. Somewhere deep down we all knew that we had done something, loved too much or too little, held on too tight or let go too soon, made mistakes that our children would never forgive, or made no mistakes at all and were punished anyway. I don't know which one I am. I don't know if I was a bad mother. I was tired. I was lonely. I was married to a man who kept secrets and hid money and left me to raise his children alone while he worked and worked and worked. Maybe I wasn't present enough. Maybe I was too present. Maybe I smothered Mark. Maybe I didn't love him the way he needed to be loved. Maybe I loved him too much and he resented me for it. I don't know. I will never know. That's the curse of being a parent. You spend your whole life guessing, and you die not knowing if you guessed right. It's been 2 years since the lawsuit. I still live in the same house, the one with the fading towels and the quiet rooms, and the yard that takes too long to rake. Jenny calls me every Sunday. She came for Christmas last year. Just her. The twins were with their father. She sat in my kitchen and we made cookies, and she told me she was proud of me, for fighting, for not giving up, for still being here. Mark has not called. Not once. Not on my birthday. Not on Christmas. Not on the anniversary of his father's death. He has erased me the way I erased him. We are ghosts to each other now. Two people who used to be everything and are now nothing. I still see the grandchildren sometimes, at school plays, at soccer games, places where Lauren can't stop me from being there without causing a scene. They wave at me, they smile, they say, "Hi, Grandma," but they don't know me. They know the idea of me, the old woman who used to watch them on Tuesdays, the one their father doesn't talk about, the one who sued him and lost. I don't know if they'll ever understand. Maybe when they're older. Maybe when they have children of their own. Maybe when someone they love betrays them, and they feel that cold knife in their chest, and they realize that family is just a word until someone decides it isn't. Or maybe they'll never understand. Maybe they'll grow up thinking I was the villain, the bitter old grandmother who tried to take their father's money. That's what Lauren will tell them. That's what Mark will let her tell them. And I won't be there to defend myself, because I'm not invited. I'm never invited. Last week I found the life insurance policy. Not the original, a copy. Carol sent it to me after the trial. I had put it in a drawer and tried to forget about it. But last week I opened the drawer, and there it was. Tom's signature on the bottom line. Mark's name typed neatly in the beneficiary box. I held the paper in my hands. It was just a piece of paper.
White, 8.5 by 11. Flimsy. The kind of paper you could tear in half without even trying. I didn't tear it. I folded it. I put it back in the drawer. I closed the drawer. And then I went to the kitchen and made myself a cup of tea. The same tea I had been making for 40 years. The same cup. The same spoon. The same quiet. The phone didn't ring. It never rings anymore. Not from him. Not from them. Just Jenny on Sundays. And the occasional telemarketer. And the automated calls from the pharmacy telling me my prescription is ready. I don't mind the silence. I've gotten used to it. You can get used to anything if you live long enough. That's not hope. That's not strength. That's just the slow erosion of wanting. The day you stop expecting the phone to ring is the day you finally understand what it means to be alone. I still fold the towels. I still rake the yard. I still sit in the recliner and watch the light change. And sometimes I think about the beach, the Outer Banks, the house with 6 bedrooms, the sand castles my son used to build, the way his hands looked shaping the turrets, the way he looked up at me and smiled. That smile, that boy, that love. I don't know where it went. I don't know if it was ever real.
I don't know anything anymore, except that I am 74 years old, and my son has $400,000, and I have a drawer full of papers that prove nothing, except that the people you love the most are the ones who know exactly where to cut.